Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Holy Rivals Show. I'm your co-host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me is my partner and also co-host, the Wild Ute. How you doing, Ute?
What is up? How you guys doing? How's the chat land doing out there too? Doing
We'll
great
have to
tonight.
find out how active people are. I think people are kind of burned out now that the season's over. We might have to see what people really want to focus on. So I'm looking forward to that tonight. Along with us, I've got our two key contributors, Immaculate View and Moen Show. How you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Doing
Good
good.
to be here.
Excellent. That's good. Appreciate you guys being here. We're looking at probably an hour and 15 minutes. We're starting 15 minutes earlier than we normally do, and I have to take off at 9 o'clock Eastern. So we'll be going through that tonight. We'll go over ratings. We'll go over our picks for the weekend. A real quick note about the Pac-2 and an article John Wilner put out about what's next for them. And then there's some college football playoff stuff that we can talk about. So I'm really looking forward to the show. Before we get going, let me just encourage everybody, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter. And then make sure you turn on your notifications. That's the biggest thing at this point is notifications. So you guys know when we're on, when we post things on Twitter, you'll know about them. And that's the easiest way to track our show in general. All right, before we dive into anything, I'm just going to open it up for you guys. Anything off the top of your head, you can just do a couple minutes on something if you feel strongly about it. If you don't, just let me know, and we'll move down the line. So, I'm going to give you some time.
I think that this Oregon State and Wazoo situation is pretty fascinating, amazing. The lawsuit going on. Jonathan Smith leaving. A lot of Oregon State players putting their names in the portal. It's kind of wild to see all this happen. I know we've got some Oregon State folks out there, casting for Chromes out there and stuff. We feel for you guys. It sucks right now for the Beavs and the Cougars. Hoping that you find some stability here soon with that Mountain West Alliance and everything. But that's kind of what's on my mind right now. Secondary is the Michigan saga. Now that Michigan has made its way out of the Big Ten undefeated, to me, I think it's quite amazing that the whole scandal has basically been silenced for whatever reason. I don't know if that's a Big Ten thing. I don't know if that's just a Michigan thing. I don't know if people just got sick of realizing that that Michigan, was cheating for 7 games out of the season. This regular season, they had 7 games where they were illegally stealing signs from in-person scouting, and it seems just like people don't even care now. Like people have forgotten about this. Like this team's about to go to the Big Ten title into the playoffs, and they could win a national championship the same year this is happening, and folks aren't even talking about it. Unbelievable. And so I'm shocked about that. I can't believe that folks just would nuke it. I think that it's probably strategic from the Big Ten to try to silence this as much as possible. I get that from a business standpoint, but still, it's freaking unfair and ridiculous, I think.
I love it. That's a great lead in to some of the stuff we're going to talk about. I totally agree with you. I'll let Moen and Immaculate do a couple minutes, and then we'll circle back on that Michigan thing. I think that's something we need to talk about. Immaculate, do you have anything off the top of your head? I know we talked before the show about the further college football playoff stuff and what's going on with that. Tell everybody kind of what you're focusing on.
For me, it's all about the college football playoff right now. This is stacking up to be a unique 4-team college football playoff. At least the lead into it is. And the fact that it's the last one. We just got our rankings out. Georgia did get first, which was the one that I missed. I actually had Michigan first, Georgia second, Washington, FSU, Oregon, Ohio State. So it's pretty much on point. The Georgia getting number 1 is interesting, and we can go into that a lot more later if you want. I was a little shocked to see them kept number 1, but to me, that's the big story right now. But I do agree with Walu. Like, there's, the situation with the Pac is a big deal right now. As far as Michigan goes, that's an ongoing story. But I just think it's still going. It's the NCAA investigation, so we'll hear more about that when that starts coming out.
Agreed. And I think Georgia being number 1, I would have kept them, but I do see where the argument would be for Michigan to be ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we can talk about. And then Moen, what's on the top of your mind tonight?
Coaches not manning up and talking to their team before they leave.
Oh my
Mike
gosh.
Elko, John Smith. I don't begrudge coaches making more money, having better opportunities. I do begrudge them when they are not man enough to actually do things the right way on the way out.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah. Jonathan Smith was really disappointing after everything.
And that's his alma mater. Like, this isn't just some coach
there
who's a mercenary coming around.
Right.
I mean, he was a quarterback there. Good Lord.
No, it came out today that he told Damian Martinez within the last month that he was staying at Oregon State. Within the last month, over the last few weeks. And
there's a lot of stories starting to come out about him from the players that, like, maybe that wasn't such a good situation and he, got out of town.
Quite possible. Yeah, and I think that it makes a big difference when you abandon on your team. Even if there's rumors, you saw the way Oregon State played this weekend. That was not a team that they certainly, it wasn't the same team that beat Utah or that took Washington to the end. That team was gutted. They didn't want to be there.
That sucks for both teams. That sucks for Oregon State that they had to go through that, but it also sucks for Oregon because now it's kind of like, this is your final chance to show how good you are. And I personally think that Oregon might be the best team in the country right now, but that comes into question. Like, did you actually go against the same Oregon State that Washington went against? Can we even use that as a comparison? I don't know. It really sucks that it went down the way it did.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And then to follow back with Michigan, I think it is a travesty. People have a short attention span. That's why getting that initial punishment out was so important. And you knew the longer they strung that out, the weaker anything they were going to do to Michigan was going to be. And it is unfortunate because I do believe it was a competitive advantage. Put them ahead of their competitors for 2.5 years, and yet they got away with it. It's really crazy to me.
And this season, like 7 games out of 12, Stallions was on the sidelines, guys. 7 out of 12 games, and then this came out and everything. So it's not like they didn't benefit from him this year.
Right.
Illegal, in-person, sign stealing, cheating, whatever you want to call it and stuff, just a scandal. And just doesn't seem like there's going to be enough backlash on this. Like, it seems like, okay, Harbaugh was suspended, the Big Ten's done, and the NCAA investigation is going to wrap up in a year or 2. Nobody's going to care. Everyone's going to move on. Michigan's going to have a loaded recruiting class coming in. They've benefited so much. And man, I'll tell you what, like, if you're of questionable character, it really makes you think, why not go after that and cheat too?
Exactly.
I'm serious,
right.
guys. Like, I wouldn't do that myself and stuff, but if I'm a program, like, hey,
look,
this is
the
incentive.
The NCAA has yet to speak on the Michigan situation. The Big Ten did what they could.
That's an internal thing.
That's an internal thing. The NCAA has yet to speak. Jim Harbaugh's not going to be coaching at Michigan next year. He's taking the NFL job because he knows he's getting show caused. He's taking the NFL job. He's getting out of town. Yep. They will be impacted. They're going to have to vacate wins. They're going to lose scholarships. They're going to get a bowl ban. Those things will happen. The NCAA isn't going to screw around with it, I don't think. They're going to make an example.
Yeah, and I get that. It's going to be like, years in the future and everything. And like there's going to be lingering benefits, economic benefits, recruiting benefits that Michigan gets from this deal. And so I'm saying that the net impact has been largely beneficial to Michigan and will continue being beneficial. So really, why not do it? If you can win a national championship of the year and not get that taken away immediately, and you can go play in those games and get the economic benefit from it, it's probably worth it. That's what I'm
Right.
saying, and that's what the message is sending.
Keep in mind, the NCAA has said they are accelerating this case. This is an accelerated investigation, so we'll see how accelerated that is.
And it's
Do you
tough
think it's-
because all of that was shut down, but they still beat Ohio State, and that's where it makes this very complicated on how far to go in, because it's like, okay, well, now we're sitting here going, I wanted to see them lose to Ohio State, because then we could sit there and say, look, clearly they've gotten some benefit in the past. I mean, they couldn't hang with Ohio State this time, but they didn't. I mean, it's a tough situation for everyone to be in. Tough situation with the CFP, because where is this investigation going to go from the NCAA? To me, now this is shifting the spotlight off of Michigan and now onto the NCAA. That's what this feels like for me. Like, this is going to be kind of twisted into an attack on the NCAA and the process more so than it is on Michigan. And in that regards, I say you're right. I say, yeah, this might take some of the attention off of Michigan and put it onto the NCAA itself.
It seems like there's a pretty good benefit, if you're gonna really not even toe the line, go over the line like this. And we're talking about NIL and the Wild West of college sports, but hey,
Yeah.
you know what? There's no if Michigan doesn't get absolutely blasted, it doesn't seem to me like they will, and definitely not this season. I don't see the NCAA stopping a playoff berth or a possible national championship, and that is definitely in the cards with this Michigan team. You really got to question it. Coaches, they make so much money. They need to perform, guys. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars and stuff, and they're going to be toeing the line with everything. Everything, and it makes sense. It makes sense why they do that. So expect more of it.
It's just like steroids was in baseball. You get the big contract, you hit all the home runs, and then later they ban you for a year. You don't have to give your money back. Any awards you won have been kept by the people that have gotten them. It's just there's no way to control it. And I agree with you, Ute. This could open the floodgates. If they don't put the hammer down on Michigan in even 18 months, you could really see a lot of, you're going to have people using their iWatches to call plays. It's going to be all digital. It's going to any advantage you do until you get caught.
And this was a big moment, in the Big Ten. We talked about, this is pivotal. The Big Ten had a chance to really step in and govern, do the government of this new college football world. The Big Ten did make a quick decision. Give them kudos for that. 3-game suspension for Harbaugh. But considering really what's the allegations and what's the clear evidence and stuff, that and they ruled on that. So obviously Michigan was guilty. The Big Ten found Michigan guilty, and just 3-game suspension by Harbaugh was so freaking light. It's so frustrating to see that and stuff. It sucks, guys. I hate this. I'm halfway. I love college football so much. I'm halfway tempted just not to watch any of the games Michigan's in. I want to, but it's boycott this crap.
Yeah, I wish
no one's gonna do it.
Wish it was easier to do that. We got a super chat in. Cleveland Rock says, if Washington, Oregon, Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, and Georgia all have one loss, who gets the last spot? Well, before we answer that, let me first do our shout outs. You guys can think about that one for a second. I want to give out shout outs to everybody who's here now, at least to the best of my ability. Glenn Lumen is checking in from the Philippines. He's tracking the BYU women's soccer team, which is now in the Final Four. This weekend, they were down 3-0 at halftime, and came back and won against North Carolina on Friday night. 3-0 at halftime, and within 9 minutes they came and got 4 goals and won. It was just incredible. Let's see here. David Hackett's here, and he says, hello, Bomber, Immaculate Moan, and Wild Ute. It's championship week. That it is.
Yeah.
Eugene is here. All these guys, by the way, are all members of the show and paying members, and we really very much appreciate that. Eugene says good evening, and look at Oregon State's men's soccer team in the Final 8. I don't know anything about them. They're playing at UNC on Saturday. Good luck to OSU.
Go Bees.
Let's see here. Kenneth Evans is in the house. Casting for Chrome is here. Let's see. BR is here, and maybe he's happy about the Go Pokes beat Texas. Well, they got by one on BYU, and they're just gonna have to take it for whatever they can. Good luck in that championship game. Let's see here. OPD Don is in the house. Kenneth Evans is here. Again, casting for Chrome. My gosh, Tony Lawson is in the house. Earl Carr is also here. Golly,
We got quite a few people showing up
we
tonight.
do.
We got a
Moth-
bunch of people in the house. Yeah.
Moth Prof is here. And yeah, we're just getting. Oh, and Sergeant Pickles says the wheels off the bus. I genuinely think that the only way to restore true competitive fairness is for an entity like the NFL to be in control of the whole deal. I will hate it, but it's true.
Hmm.
Well, Bob Thompson's talked about he would like to see that, but who does it and how they put it in place, nobody can agree. Okay, let's talk about this Cleveland Rock Super Chat. If Washington, Oregon, Alabama, Texas, and Ohio State and Georgia all have one loss, who gets the last spot? I'll give you mine right off the top of my head. If Oregon beats Washington, they're going to be in.
Yeah.
If Georgia wins out, they're in.
But
Well, these are just mine.
yeah, I got you.
If Michigan lose in the championship game, they still have a chance to get in because the loss would be to Iowa. So we'd have to look at that one way or the other. Alabama right now isn't looking great. Auburn almost beat them. So I would probably go Oregon. I would probably go Texas, Georgia, and the last one would just be a pick 'em. I don't know who that fourth one would be. Who do you think?
Yeah, I think that if Washington loses, Washington is undefeated. So if you lose in the Pac-12 championship, you're out. Like they're
Yeah.
clear. I think they're clear out. Oregon has one loss, so that'd mean that they would win the Pac-12 championship, given that they're sitting at 5. And Bomber, is there any way that you could pull up the CFP rankings while I speak about this too, so we just get some? I sent-
I don't have them. I would have to look for them. Hang on.
I sent them to you in on Twitter.
The
Just
CFP ranking?
Yeah, it
They
just came out.
they just came out before we started.
Oh, I didn't see that link. That one came in after. I apologize.
I put them up in our little private chat in the background. But if you got
I'll
a
do
link
it.
for
I'll
it,
do it right now. Yep.
So Ohio State, and we'll get to Alabama and Texas and Oregon because those are
scroll down
interesting.
here.
I think Georgia's
there
out
we
if they
go.
lose to Alabama, no matter what. Georgia
Mhm.
needs to win, so I think Georgia and Washington would be out. But then it gets, I don't think Ohio State. I know Moan, you probably don't want to hear that, but Ohio State's out. So I
Yeah,
think
I don't want him, man.
You don't want Ohio State in?
No, not with Kyle McCord at quarterback.
Well,
No,
yeah,
thank you. I'd like to win my New Year's Six game.
it's getting
that's a
it
smart
gets re-
choice.
It gets real weird with Oregon, Texas, and Alabama. If all those schools win in the championship games, because Texas will have the breaker over Bama, and I think they're going to get in over Bama. They're 7, Bama's 8, and no matter what, they're going to slide in there. I think Bama's screwed. Based on this ranking that just came out right here, Texas 7, Bama 8. I don't see Bama jumping Texas unless they blast Georgia 50-7 or something. That ain't happening. So I don't think Bama's actually getting in. So I think that looks like Oregon, if they win, they're in. I think that Texas might have a shot at getting in too here, the 4th seed.
Right. But Immaculate, what do you think?
Ooh, man, yeah, this is it for me. This is the big story because what going off of the chat. I don't know if you could bring that one back up again if you don't mind, just since we're going off of there it is. Now what he's saying is Georgia have one loss. That would mean they lost to Alabama. And in my opinion, based upon their last game against Georgia Tech, and that I actually think that they fall out. If Texas already has a loss, so that means they're winning. Alabama would get the win, but Texas holds them back.
Florida,
To me-
ironically, Florida State's not even mentioned on here.
No, and he's saying, but what he's saying is that they're not in the one-loss team. So he's saying Michigan and Florida State win in his scenario. So I'm saying Michigan would be number 1 in this scenario. I'm moving Oregon up to number 2 if they beat Washington. That's just my thought on where I think that they would land in this. I think Texas moves up to number 3. And then at that point in time, we have ourselves a real situation because you got Michigan number 1. Make sure I'm getting this right. Michigan number 1, Oregon number 2, Texas number 3. And now what do you
It's
do?
got to be Georgia. It has to be Georgia.
But they just lost to Alabama.
But that doesn't matter. They've been undefeated for 3 years in a row.
But they're not. But they would have the exact same record as Alabama, and Alabama will have just beaten them in the conference championship game. How do you put in Georgia ahead of Alabama if they just lost to them?
You don't.
Yeah,
The SEC's out.
I think people have it baked in their heads that Georgia needs to be there, and I get that because they're
I don't
good
know.
in their history. But
I don't
when
know.
if you just look at these as like just names and their resumes, Georgia's out, and that becomes now a situation of do you put in Alabama or Ohio State? And for me personally, I would rather have Alabama there.
So who's Florida State should be on this list.
Well, Florida State's
Oh,
in, I think.
I
if
forgot
they
Florida
win out.
State.
If
If they win out, they'll
Point
be
that out.
undefeated.
if they win out, they have to be
Yeah,
in.
they're in. They're in. They're
Right?
probably number 4. I would
If
go
Florida
Michigan, Oregon,
Yeah.
Tech, or Texas or Florida State. You can flop them at 3 and 4, whatever you want to do. And then that's the situation that I was going to get to here later is that Alabama might actually knock the SEC out of this. Out of all of the dominance that Alabama has had in this 4-team
No, I don't
CFP in the
think
past.
so.
I mean, you could think they don't, but I'm just saying, like resume wise, just looking at what happens, Alabama could knock the SEC out of this thing in the end if they beat, because they're held back by Texas.
Mhm.
If Texas smokes
Right.
Oklahoma State, Texas just smoked Texas Tech, and Texas Tech played tough against Oregon. So that's not looking like a bad win despite Texas Tech's record. Whereas Georgia couldn't even score in the fourth quarter against Georgia Tech as Georgia Tech was coming back. And Alabama almost lost to Auburn, and Auburn lost to New Mexico State at home. They got crushed. So right now, just based upon, not the history of the SEC, not what everyone thinks about them, but actual results on the field here in the past couple of weeks, they don't look dominant in terms of how you're going to rank this. And if Alabama knocks out Georgia because they lost to Texas, they might not even be in this, which, people can believe it or not. I'm just saying, just based upon what we have here, that's possible. People
Alright.
can believe it or not, but it's possible that could happen.
Moen?
Yeah, I don't see him leaving the SEC out regardless of what happens. If Georgia gets beat by Alabama, they'll just consider it a quality loss for Georgia and leave them in.
I think so too.
You think
And then,
so?
so who doesn't
Yeah.
get in then? Like Texas?
If you I
No.
I don't think Alabama can earn their way in.
Yeah,
I think
in
they're
that
on
scenario,
one side
in that scenario, you'd have Georgia, Michigan, assuming Florida State's undefeated, right?
Mhm.
So the game before this, Georgia loses, and you're still going to put them in when they lost their own conference championship game on a neutral field, which is what I get it. I think a lot of people agree with you, but that to me basically
I
means
am
that
telling you, the committee will say it's a quality loss and put them at number 4.
And I think Georgia Tech, I think that was fool's gold. They were playing a lot of backups at the end
But
of
it-
that game.
but it still counts. You still got to look at that and say this is
but-
what they did.
But Moen, look at common opponents. If Georgia loses to Alabama and Texas has beat Alabama, then there's like that
It's
swing.
not transitory all the way though. Georgia's
It's
been
gotta be, though. I mean-
undefeated. It is.
I mean,
Not
like
for
this
Georgia,
is
I
so
don't think.
tight this year and everything. I'm with Immaculate that I could see
Oh.
the SEC get left out.
I mean,
This is a lot of fun talking about it.
yeah, I just don't
Go
see
for a
how
minute.
you put Georgia in if they lose to Alabama in the conference championship game. I mean, it's kind of like, what's the point of playing that game then?
But that happens every year. There's a game like that ends up being off.
But
Well,
but not where the winner gets kept out while the loser gets
That-
in.
that has happened.
Not when they're
the
both like
SEC.
in the top. I mean, this is in the top 8. Like maybe if you've had like someone who's like number 15 and they pull off a win, but that doesn't necessarily. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that a conference or a loser of the conference championship game gets in unless like
Put Put it
In the
this way, we'll
same-
know in a week.
Yeah. I mean,
We'll
it's
know in a
there's
week.
we could probably debate that all night.
Yeah.
We never agree with each
Well,
other.
let's hear everybody's four. Who does everybody think the four are?
Yeah, so I think the four are. I think Georgia takes care of business. Michigan takes care of business. Washington and Florida State. I think you see it right here. I think those four are in. I think they're all. I think we have four undefeated conference champions.
Florida State, yeah, I think the top three win. Washington, I am concerned about, and I'm a Washington fan. Oregon is really hot, though. So if Washington loses, they're out, and then I think you have to put Oregon in. But that's just my opinion. What do you think, Mullen?
I think Florida State loses this weekend to Louisville.
It's certainly
Really?
possible. It's certainly
Yeah.
possible.
I think Florida
Okay.
State's out. I would put Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, Texas.
I could see
Georgia,
that.
Michigan, Oregon. Yeah.
Assuming
I could
Texas
see
beats
that.
Oklahoma State, which is
Yeah.
very likely.
Man,
Yeah,
that would be a dang good playoff.
That would
would
be
be
a good
awesome.
playoff.
Awesome,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, that would be really good.
Mhm.
Do you guys think that the Pac-12 could get left out in some way, shape, or form?
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah,
0%.
Moan,
Yeah.
how did that happen? How's the Pac-12 get left out?
They can't. It's
No.
impossible.
It's 0% odds of
yeah,
Pac
it's a
getting left
0%
out.
chance.
You have a spot locked with
2,
Washington of Oregon at
3,
number
4.
by putting Oregon number 5, they have locked the pack in.
Oh, I thought there was one more undefeated team. I apologize. So yeah, there's only the 4, and that would mean Washington lost. So yeah, I think either Washington or Oregon is in. Yep.
You know, I'm kind of amused this week because all the talk is about how Oregon's going to blitz Washington. Like Oregon is this superpowered
Yeah, I'm not
juggernaut,
saying that.
10-point favorite. I mean, this is the craziest thing ever. Like I get like the momentum factor and
Right.
everything, but folks forget that Washington beat this Oregon team this year and handed them a loss. And just
Yes.
the amount of disrespect that's going Washington's way makes me kind of sick, honestly. And I know we've got some Huskies in the chat. I bet they're feeling the same way, but like if I'm Washington, I'm coming like Dukes up, right? Like in fighting this game, you've got Penix, and really the winner of this game is going to be the Heisman winner. I like Washington in this football game just because no one's giving them a freaking shot. How are you giving? No, how's no one giving Washington a shot in this game? What am I missing here? What am I missing here, guys?
No, they got a shot.
No one's
I,
giving them a shot.
I think Washington hasn't grown as much since that Washington-Oregon game as Oregon has, but Washington's still one hell of a team. I mean, they might have the best pocket passer in the game. In fact, I definitely think they do. I think their defense is underrated. It's scrappy. It shows up when it has to. It just doesn't. It doesn't dominate the whole game, but it can show up when it needs to. But right now, I don't see a weakness on Oregon's team. That's my thing. Is like I can still look at parts of Washington and say, not the top level here at that. Whereas on Oregon right now, the way they're playing, I'm not seeing a weakness. So I'm leaning Oregon. But if Washington wins, I'm not going to be like shocked. It's like, yeah, they're a great team and could have won as well. I'm leaning Oregon to win
A
that.
10-point line. I've never heard of this before. A 10-point line
That's
a couple
a little bit
weeks
odd.
after you've just lost to a team, like, and then the 10-point lines to the underdog's the undefeated team. And like we know the higher ranking and stuff. Who cares about that? But the undefeated team that beat you already, that's crazy. 10-point line, guys. You know how big that is in Vegas? A 10-point line.
And that's where that whole drama at Oregon State might have just screwed the odds, because people are looking at that win over Oregon State going and comparing that to what Washington did against them and saying, look how much better Oregon. Yeah, it is. Exactly. So if they, got that news before the game, if they were playing deflated, that messes that whole lineup. And I wouldn't be surprised if that number drops significantly before the game. Like, just because people will be taking that. Like I would take the Washington on that bet. I don't think Oregon's going to beat them by more than 10 if they do.
Well, we'll be doing it on Friday or Thursday.
I'm hoping that gets a little closer.
The Pac-12 championship game's Friday night, right?
That's right.
So, should we do our picks tomorrow night again?
Oof, kind of throws me off a little bit, but yeah, we can do that.
What time's the game on Friday night? Probably
it's
at
usually
6,
about 6.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we
Cool.
can try to do it early on Friday evening. I mean, it's up to you guys. I'm off Friday, so I'll be, I could do it anytime after 2 Eastern.
Yeah,
We
I
might
can
want to
come
shoot
on
before the
earlier.
game. Yeah.
I can come on earlier Friday if you want.
Somebody look up what time the game is, and we could do a show right before.
I like that idea of doing it right before.
No, let's do that. I'm okay with that. All right. Well, while you guys are looking that up, let's get to our Week 13 results. We picked 12 games. We'll quickly review them. But for
Okay.
everybody who's new to what we do, these are our outstanding records. Immaculate, talk everybody through what happened this weekend.
A whole lot of pain. That's what happened. A lot of teams not making the spreads. I think that we found out this weekend that these big spreads, they're just pure danger. Like you guys all took Utah and I took Colorado, and I got the win because the spread was just too much.
Yep.
Kind of the Oregon State game was painful because I think that Oregon State, if they're playing top, I still think they would have made that spread. Who else was a big one on this one that we all kind of
Alabama. Somebody had Auburn. I know somebody who had Auburn because it was me.
No.
Nice pick.
Did you?
I had Alabama.
Yeah, no, everyone had Bama in that one. The goofy one that really, the Florida State game, because only one of us took Florida State.
That was me.
Yeah. Yep. And that pulled you ahead.
Yeah.
But it went. I was impressed. with Florida State. I thought that was going to be a tough game. I thought that Florida would actually beat them outright. And Florida State showed that they're not out just because they lost their quarterback. I mean, it wasn't a great showing, but it was enough to beat Florida at Florida in a game which they could have lost. So I think Florida State may be a little bit better off than we were thinking that they would be without Jordan.
Yeah, Florida was disappointing. Just to see how they kind of fumbled that game away and pooped it away with penalties and stupidity, and like you just shake your head at sometimes how these guys play. So undisciplined, and they've got talent too, and they should have won that football game, but they let Tate Rodemaker come into their house in the swamp and take care of business. I mean, FSU's on his last leg. Sure looks like that. And Moan, I know you think Louisville's going to beat them. It's going to be a close game this weekend and everything. I mean, I don't think that's going to be a blowout either way. I think FSU's probably got enough gas to get that done.
Is their quarterback still out?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Travis, Jordan Travis, he's done for the season.
He's done for the year. Yeah,
sure.
I think.
Yeah,
that's
his career too. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of speculating there. But yeah, the backup quarterback played okay. The backup quarterback actually was a decommit from the University of Utah and flipped to Florida State years ago. Tate Rodemaker.
Okay.
And he's playing, so I mean, he's okay. He's a backup, right? I mean, like a very average, below average type quarterback, but they've got talent elsewhere, so they're a good team. But Florida really had a chance to beat them. It's kind of a bummer.
I mean, the real story, though, as you know, is that Iowa got double-digit wins.
Dude.
Can I just say that was
worst ranked offense in all of FBS. 10
was
wins.
Boring football game I have ever seen in my life.
You guys got to learn to not follow the
that was
camera.
So boring.
Gotta watch,
there was the two guys. There was the two guys that were wearing those gray sweatshirts that I'm here for punts or something like that. What did it say? And every time that they punted, it just punts. Every time they did that, the camera went to them. Like 10 times they were on TV. It was pretty funny. All right, let's quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's quickly run through these. Were we surprised at all? Ole Miss covered over Mississippi State.
I think that was a push game. I think that was a 10-point win and everything. The Egg Bowl is a weird game. It's such a weird game. Not surprised, on that one.
Okay. Iowa, Nebraska. What do you want to say? We're talking about that one, Immaculate.
I actually had fun watching this one. I just want to highlight one player on the team that isn't seem to be getting much attention, and that's Sebastian Castro. And I think that's a name you're going to be hearing on Sundays. He in one play he had a blocker on him, and the runner was coming at him. He didn't just like go around his blocker. He took his blocker and threw him at the running back, and then made the tackle. I've never seen a play like that from a safety before. I mean, this guy just plays way above his weight, and that's why I say for people who say it's boring, I would say watch that guy in the Michigan game if you can find him. You will be entertained.
I like that if you can find him. That's
Hey,
good.
he's a defender. The camera doesn't follow them, but
I
you just
got
kind of
you.
got to know who to look for.
Okay. Texas Tech, Texas. Anybody want to say anything about that?
What the heck is Texas Tech? My gosh, remember all the expectations preseason for these
Yes,
guys?
I
Like
know.
seriously, and just to go get blitzed so
Yeah.
bad by Texas. I mean, that was disappointing to see. And a lot of Tech fans, on the social media verse are kind of flexing because of the recruiting class and saying how strong they're going to be in the year's future. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's a disappointing performance by Tech. Texas is a good football team, and they just punked them big time.
That was
Yeah.
an embarrassing beatdown. There's no doubt about it. Texas wanted that one really bad. So let's see here. Oregon State, Oregon. All I'll say about that is the moment we should throw that game out, in my opinion. The moment that the coach is rumored to be gone that day of the game, the team has no incentive to play, and it was really sad because Oregon State all year long has just been incredible, tough. That's how I describe them. And that team that played on Saturday night was probably one of the weakest I've ever seen, considering their record.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's tough to get motivated to play that football game with all that swirling, and plus the last week, the week before to Washington in heartbreaking fashion. It
Right.
sucks that this wasn't the year for the Beavers, given everything that was going on. It stings. Yeah, I mean, we love this college football sport because of the highs and the lows, and unfortunately, Beaver friends, I know it's a low point right now for you, but there'll be better days ahead. Good thing that Aiden Childs and Damian Martinez are coming back. If you can hold those guys, you're gonna have a really good core next year. You're gonna win a lot of football games with those two.
Yeah, we'll stay Oregon State fans around here for sure. All right, Colorado, Utah's. I'm disappointed Utah didn't cover, but no surprise the way the game turned out.
Yeah, that game was ugly as crap. Being at the game, it was cold. And I'm going to pull up here. Our web says, Wild U was giving me the business on taking Colorado. And as our web pointed out, Utah's offense gave them no confidence that they would reach this 22 number. Okay, let me speak to that a little bit here. So our web, that's a good point and stuff. He took Colorado. Luke Batari started for the Utes. And that was that was after this line came out here. So the line at 22 went down quite a bit when fifth string quarterback Luke Batari came and played this football game. He threw 10 passes, completed 6 passes all day long, and the Utes ran, and still beat Colorado with the fifth string quarterback. So I think some perspective is needed. But again, at 22 points, if Bryson Barnes is in that game, Utes probably get there and stuff, but not with the old Batari Ferrari. So that's a little bit of why.
Very good. Anybody else want to say something?
I actually realized I just made a mistake on myself here, but I'll leave it up to you guys if you want to allow it. I didn't give myself credit for the BYU win coming up.
Okay.
So
Take it.
I'm actually
You picked them.
I'm actually 6-6 and that one
There you
game
go.
behind you. But
There you-
in terms of the Colorado game, I'm not surprised they kept up. I mean, they had a decent offense. It's just I actually think that kind of says a little bit more about Utah's defensive line. I thought that they would have done a little bit better. I don't know. Did you guys have injuries or anything?
A lot of field goals because just couldn't convert, in the red zone with the quarterback play and everything. I mean, he didn't make a lot of mistakes. He just didn't have a lot of chance to really push the ball or anything. It was really, really vanilla, just kind of big, physical football, run. So got to win, and like you finish the season 8-4, but there was no fireworks in this football game.
Yeah, I think you guys knowing that you were kind of out of the running, that probably deflated the team a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem with the 4-team playoff is that once these teams know they're not in the running, like they lose the week before the end of the year, they have no incentive to necessarily play hard for that next game, and that includes the bowl games. So, yeah, it's just a problem that has college football in its sights. I don't know how it gets better. Anyway. Let's see here. Alabama, Auburn. All I'll say is Alabama always has this game against Auburn or somebody. Sometimes it's LSU, where they are not ready to play. And it always happens once a year. Sometimes they win the game. Like at Texas A&M, we'll come up and get them. But almost every year, Alabama has one of these step-up games. And it doesn't surprise me Auburn did that this weekend.
It really brings into question for me Alabama's ability in big games. They lost to Texas, and they almost lost to Auburn. And these were arguably their biggest games that had the most attention. It makes me wonder. But if they come back and they beat Georgia, then that wipes that slate clean. But right now, big questions on Alabama and big games.
They'll have a good chance this Saturday. They've got a massive game versus the Bulldogs here. And you know what? It would be kind of nice for college football to see Georgia lose a football game. I mean, like it. Honestly, they've won so many games in a row. It's like 3 years in a row of winning and everything. It would just be kind of a breath of fresh air just to get a loss. And it's too bad it has to be Alabama that might deliver that. Probably won't happen. But yeah, I'm kind of tired of Georgia winning so much, man.
I know it sucks, right? It's like being a fan or a not a fan of the Patriots. Nobody likes to see the Patriots win anymore, right? Same
That's
reason.
right.
All right, BYU, Oklahoma State. All I'll say is BYU 2 weeks in a row had teams on the mat and couldn't put them away. And my biggest complaint is the offensive coordinator. Unfortunately, like a lot of companies, when they're having trouble, they don't get rid of the middle management. They get rid of the people doing the work. And we're going to be stuck for another year with A-Rod. And it's frustrating. There's a lot of frustrated Cougars out there that were very upset with the way the last 2 games of the season ended up. So BYU covered, which was fantastic, but they should have beat both Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, and that's frustrating.
What happened in the second half of that football game, Bomber?
It's like they went into a shell. They were playing not to win. Not to lose. You can't win when you're playing not to lose.
It's frustrating how many times you see this happen, especially in the college ranks, where a team builds up a big win or a big lead playing a certain way, and then they stop playing that way as if
exactly right.
I don't get it. That's why. But then other teams who keep the pedal down and keep going, they get said, "Oh, you're just running up the score," and it's like, well, it's working. Why start doing something that may not work?
Exactly. Or quit doing things that were working, right? They ran the ball up and down against Oklahoma, and then next thing I know, the guy's throwing the ball all over the place, and he can't complete a pass. Why? What just happened? Why aren't you running more? Anyways, I don't want to get into it. I'm just frustrated.
I think BYU showed a lot, though, and I think that BYU has a pretty good future ahead of them in that conference. You can look at how they let things go, but you could also look at how good they looked at times. So,
right,
they make some changes here, fill some holes here and there. I think BYU is going to be pretty good in the Big 12.
One thing I will say is both BYU and Utah played top 5, top 6 strength of schedules. For some reason, they had really difficult schedules this year. So we'll have to see how it turns out next year. It'll be interesting.
It will soften up next year for both BYU and Utah because you're not playing your USCs, your Oregons, your Texas, your Oklahomas. So those strengths of schedules are going to be more.
You'll have to say that. You keep saying that, and I'm telling you, it's not.
I'm telling you,
those
are the big boys of these conferences.
All right. Well, we'll see how it works out next year. No reason to get into discussion about it right now. Wisconsin, Minnesota. Is there anything you always want to say about that one?
Of course, Minnesota let us down. Like I was shocked to see that we were even picking this one, but I thought it'd be a fun one because I did think it'd be close, and then somehow Wisconsin just runs away with it.
Yeah, I have no Wisconsin there. What do you want to say about this, Ute?
Yeah, so Tough Tony says the Greek squirt gun is in the portal. It's a great day. Dang,
Somebody-
yeah.
who is that?
Minnesota. That's Austin Kaliak Manis.
Okay. All
Am I
right.
saying that right? That's the
Yeah,
first time I've
you're-
actually tried to pronounce that name before.
You know, I was just going to say he's going to go to a Pac-12 team and become a Heisman finalist, but then I just remembered there's no Pac-12 next
There's no
year.
Pac-12. That's right.
Yeah, seriously, right? But yeah, he was a struggle this year for the Golden Gophers. But like, you know what? I love Golden Gopher fans. Like, shout out to you, Tough Tony, Greg Flugar. I love Flugar's story of like, staying up till 2 a.m. and watching the Hawaii game to see if if Minnesota gets bowl eligible at 5-7, and it happened.
Right.
Oh, our
Exactly.
community's crazy. Love it.
Thank you for the super chat, Tony. That was really nice of you. Let's see here. Wisconsin, that one's done. Wazoo, Washington, another game that always is a rivalry game. And, typically it ended up being messy at the end. But Washington got the win, but they don't cover. Anything you guys want to say about that one?
I think yeah, go ahead, Immaculate. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to talk about actually the Wazoo quarterback and the whole
Yeah, he's now in the portal.
the $1 million man, as we're going to start calling him.
Yeah.
Where do you-
Supposedly 10 plus teams have offered at least $1 million in NIL money. He's basically, he can go out and he can be an independent contractor and find his best landing place.
I mean, that's the new bet now is where does he land? Like if I was
Yeah.
I'd start putting odds on that. You could probably make a ton of money off of putting that out as a bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Come-
know.
Come win a championship at Ohio State, be a top 5 draft pick.
There you go.
I
Mahomes
mean,
already started. Hey, come to
There you
Iowa.
go.
I mean, we're, give you a good defense.
You have a great defense. Florida State, Florida, we already talked about. Do you guys want to say anything else about that one?
No, it's just
Okay. Clemson, South Carolina. Clemson covered, right?
I don't think they scored a single touchdown, but they scored 16 points.
Okay, well, and they won, right?
Yeah,
So-
they won.
Okay.
You know what boggles my mind? I think this game was this like on the ACC network, some weird channel.
It
and
was
stuff for
not
this game.
watchable. I couldn't find it.
I think it was
What?
ACC Network.
Like, how does Clemson,
find
South
it.
Carolina end up on the ACC network? Holy smokes!
We should, in the offseason, we're going to have a conversation about how this last year we can look at all the viewership numbers.
Right.
And the ESPN has basically thrown in the towel with the ACC network. They give them no coverage. The Big 12 gets better coverage than the ACC does.
That's fascinating, actually. What
Yeah.
to see
I
that?
think they're in on it, but anyways, that's another
Yeah.
conversation.
All right. And the last one, Ohio State, Michigan. Moen, go.
Played tight. Kyle McCord is not all that. We've been blessed with quarterbacks all the way back to Terrell Pryor. You got Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud. Kyle McCord ain't on the same level as them. We just didn't have competent quarterback play. Threw 2 picks when he couldn't throw 2 picks. I mean, and that's pretty much it. Ohio State had every ability to win this game. They had better talent on the field. Marvin Harrison Jr. was only targeted 5 times.
That's the something. I thought that was a travesty. Yep.
Travion Henderson got stuffed multiple times. I think they should have thrown more to open up the run. Questionable call in the first quarter on that 4th down. They didn't even stop to challenge the spot of that ball and decided to punt it. Ohio State beat it. I don't want to take anything away from Michigan because they're great cheaters, but Ohio State really beat itself in this game. So, I mean, that's it. Ohio State really did beat themselves, but it was kind of one of those things where we were all holding our buttholes because we had Kyle McCord as quarterback. So we kind of Like, I'm not going to say I wasn't upset by it, but I wasn't surprised by it.
Kenneth Evans says Harrison Jr. was bracketed the whole game. I saw about half the times he was in the pattern. He had a 1 over and a 1 in front. I don't know about bracketed though. A good quarterback would have gotten him the ball.
Yeah, wouldn't have mattered with Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison Jr. is never bracketed. You could triple cover that guy, and he's going to make the catch for you.
I'd throw to him in triple coverage.
Yeah.
Yep.
The quarterback just wasn't all there. That's all
I mean,
there is to it.
If he had Penix as his quarterback, I think that Harrison probably would have had a 2,000-yard season.
Wow. All right, so let's sum up again. Week 13, I was 6-6. Immaculate was 6-6. Moen was 4-8, and Wild Ute was 3-9. And then you can see our records there.
I made an error on this graphic. I don't know if you let me adjust it, but that should be 62-38 for me at the final. If you guys will allow that.
So next week is championship week. We can pick. I believe there's 10 Division I conferences that we can pick this week. How do you guys feel about picking all 10?
Let's do it.
Fine.
Let's do it.
We're gonna go down to the G's, huh? God, I have to do a little bit of looking.
Yeah, what we'll have to do is, we'll have to do some, because Memphis, Memphis in the championship game.
They deserve it. They deserve to get looked at.
SMU is playing well. So, I say we give them some run. The only question is, when is the first one of those games? Is it Friday?
Yeah,
if not, if it's Thursday, then we'll have to pick earlier.
Question.
We'll look into it.
Okay.
I'm looking right now.
Spreads.
Right now, we're talking about having a show Friday night around 7 Eastern, maybe 6:30 Eastern, and come be a part of that. All you guys are obviously invited, and I'd love to have you here. And picking these 10 games, we'll basically buttonhole and close up our season for this year, and we'll have to see where we end up.
So we got 2 games on Friday and all the rest on Saturday. Just to answer your question before.
When's the first one? The Sun.
We've got, and these are my time, which is Mountain Time right now. 5 o'clock is the New Mexico State versus Liberty game, but that's on CBS Sports Network, so kind of hard to watch, but definitely one to follow. I think that could actually be a good game.
So we can pick that one. What, at 6:30 then Eastern?
Yeah, we could pick that at 6:30.
Technically, yeah.
All
as
right,
long as we get started on that right away.
Okay, let's do it. We'll pick it 6:30 Eastern on Friday. So we're inviting all of you to be with us as we do that. And I hope we have some further fun with it, because it's been a great season. I do want to recall, let's see, where are we at? Chrome, Casting with Chrome, sent me his guesses from this last week. He had Ole Miss, Iowa, Texas, OSU, Smolorado, Bama, OK State, Minnesota, Wazoo, Florida, Clemson, and Ohio State. He picked those on Friday.
He was killing it, actually. Sounds like.
He did pretty well. Yeah. Anyway,
I'm not going to count it up because he probably just means he smoked us.
Yeah, I think he might be a game ahead of you and me in that. But
with 10 games coming up, guys.
10 games.
Everybody's still on the hunt except Moen. So,
yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. We look forward to doing that. Okay, let's get off of this and let's get to our next story. You guys wanted to, we were talking about stories to start off with tonight. You want to start with this article that is it John Wilner wrote about the Pac-2 and the departing 10? Can somebody quickly sum up what that stay of execution was put out by the Washington State Supreme Court?
Yeah, go ahead, Immaculate.
Well, I'll admit I haven't been paying full attention to this, but what was talked about, and I do believe if she's still out in chat, Rebecca had a pretty good point she made about the way the Supreme Court works there, is that they're not actually going to make a new ruling. They're going to rule on whether the previous judgment was, it's either just or legal.
Right.
So that's basically what they're doing, is they're just stopping Washington State and Oregon State from running things as was given to them during that judgment. It doesn't mean that they're ruling against it. It's just basically what the court did to stop things before they ruled. What the Supreme Court is now doing the same thing. They're saying, all right, nobody do anything. We're looking over this. And, are they going to come out and say that that judge was unjust in his ruling? Because that's what they would have to do to overturn this. I'm actually a little surprised that they went straight to the Supreme Court and didn't try to go to an appeals court where they could maybe get a different ruling.
Yeah, it was expedited. They
I know.
expedited it on purpose.
But I'm saying is they went from where they could get a different ruling to now where they're trying to get, a ruling that the judgment was unjust. And I think that that's a bit of a stretch. So, but that's where it's at. Everything's on hold until the Supreme Court looks over. And just so people understand when we're listening, we're talking about the state Supreme Court, not the national Supreme Court. So, and I think that, a guy that we've had on the show, Bodie's kind of gone through this. Remember, that's an Oregon State perspective for anyone. We have people from all perspectives here. Mm-hmm. So it's his perspective, but he does have experience in that. And it's a very interesting one. So I would tend to folks go ahead and look and see what he had to write on it. But this process is now got to be expedited, I think, by the 12th. So, pretty quick.
I think you definitely look at this and say where we are, especially with the position of these schools having no money yet. They're going to start to get really pillaged for NIL, for transfers, for coaching staffs. And I think at this point, even if they win on December 12th, I think they still might lose the war at this point. But I don't know. Anything else you want to say about it, Moen?
So if they win on the 12th, what does that mean from like the high level standpoint? Does that mean they have control of the conference?
They would have control of the coffers, and they could conceivably write the other 10 schools out and affect the payments that are supposed to be distributed next year.
So basically they can kind of use the Pac-12's assets to fund their respective programs.
Yes.
Pay NIL contracts or whatever they're trying to do. So, yeah.
But it still goes back to that original judgment in which they don't have free reign to do whatever they want. Even that judge said, you do anything that might be considered damaging to the other schools and it comes back to me, You're coming back to my court. That's why when people are trying to say like, for them to go and say that this was an unjust ruling, I'm sitting there going, that's a big stretch. But to point out, as Kenneth says in chat, the 12th is the dateline for them to get everything to the Supreme Court. How long it takes for them to look at it after that, I could only guess. But,
and I think what we're going to see is at the end of the day, the 2023, 2024 monies are going to be distributed evenly to the schools. But then after that point, this ruling is really going to tell where do the expenses go to. If you're cutting them out of the benefits, the money, then conceivably doesn't that mean you're also taking on all of the debits, the Comcast ruling, the Holiday Bowl thing? So that's why it's so complex. I still think at the end of the year, at the end of this last year in 24, you're going to have an even distribution of most of the media money. And the only thing that they might have access to that the others don't is this extended credits they get from the NCAA basketball tournament and some of the college football playoff money, which was set to run out through 2025-6. So that's the only extra that might come from this.
But if I'm not, I could be absolutely mistaken, but I'm thinking that when the money gets distributed, that's determined after like costs and everything. And now I think the big argument is what is going to be considered a reasonable projected future cost to take money and set aside for. That's where I think the argument is. And I think both sides are fair to argue that, both, the 10 and the 2, but I don't think that it's necessarily like, horribly wrong for the 2 to look at this and say, we might need some of that money that you want distributed for cost in the future for us to manage this conference. And you could say, well, that's not really a conference, but technically it is, even if it's just 2 teams because they have 2 years. So if they need to spend some money as a conference to get, a scheduling deal with another conference or whatever, that's probably where this argument lies, is that the 10 want all the money distributed cleanly. And if you want to use any of your cut to, work out a scheduling lines, that's on you. And I think OSU and WSU are saying, no, as a conference, the conference has the right to use some of that money first for any expenses. And then once that's taken care of, then it gets equal. So if that's what we're talking about in terms of like equal distribution, I'm 100% with you guys. Like, those schools deserve to get their equal cut of what there is to be distributed after costs. The fight comes in what's a viable cost.
Exactly. And that takes a lot of analysis and assumptions too on how much you have to pay out, for like the Comcast issue and the Holiday Bowl issue, if that's part of like the Pac-12 deal too, like the lawsuits that are going on. You're going to have to get estimations on how much those things are going to cost and then reduce that from the overall payout the schools are getting.
So
Distribution. So this is, in other words, this is going to go a long time, guys, I think.
right.
And that's why I said all along, they
It's
need to
not
settle
gonna be-
this.
It's not going to be settled by the December 12th date. I think it's going to continue to drag on. And the reason I think that happens is because of what the judge said. You might have won this one round, but that doesn't mean you can go out and take all the money from these guys without me having oversight and seeing it. You're not going to get away with that. And if they do try it, he'll actually penalize them. So I think at the end of the day, most of it's just going to be split evenly. And at the end of the day, Washington State and Oregon State are really going to be in trouble. That's the bottom line.
And at
And
the
I
end of
know
the
that-
day, I wonder how much it really is going to be, to a Utah or a Washington or a leaving
Good
school
question.
and stuff. Like usually those distributions have been anywhere from like 30 to 40 million.
Yeah, I think
talking credits and everything.
36, 37 is what the last number I saw.
Like, I wonder if it's going to, be less than 20. Is it going to be like 10
Right.
million? Like
Well,
it could be
maybe.
significantly lower.
I mean,
Yeah, it was 72 million is the estimate for the Comcast payout, and that total still hasn't been determined. That's an estimate.
And then like legal fees too. Adding legal fees
Right.
on top of that. So there's a lot of costs associated.
Which is what Bob said, right?
Yeah.
Last time we had him on. So I've been chatting with him back and forth. We're going to get him back on the show probably after that December 12th ruling. And then we can come on and he can say, okay, this is where I think it is. And I'm just going to follow his guidance because he's got the most experience in the room.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We've had so many comments. We don't really want to get into much more gray detail on that. If you really want to know what we're talking about and how we're talking about it and why, I'm just going to take a second here to ask everybody, if you're new to the show, definitely subscribe to the channel. Follow us all on Twitter. Turn on your notifications on both Twitter and on YouTube, and become part of the family. We have a pretty good entity building with some amazing contributors, and I really want to make sure everybody knows how much we're doing this for you, for the people that are watching. We stay up on the news so you don't have to. And we definitely engage on Twitter. Immaculate is really good about engaging on Twitter and answering questions that we'll discuss in our show. And we encourage you guys to do that with us. All right, let's go to the next one. So we already did the rankings. Let's see here. Okay, we're gonna do the viewing numbers.
I want to see this. Yeah, let's dig into the viewership. here.
Okay,
Oh, that was
So-
last week.
this is last week.
That's last week.
it's the
guys.
wrong week.
Well,
Yeah,
we
that's
found it.
Michigan, Maryland right there. So
Go
Okay.
scroll. If you're on that page, go scroll
I was on the
up or
page
down.
that you posted.
Yeah.
You-
yeah, I don't
week.
think they released the new ones yet, guys. To
Oh,
be
they have
honest,
not.
we
It
might
It
have to
might be
wait till
delayed
tomorrow.
near the holiday.
Week
Yeah, we
11,
might have to wait till tomorrow.
week 10. So yeah, we're looking at week 13 is what we want, and you guys are saying this isn't it.
Nope,
That's
Okay.
week 12.
week 12.
Well, then that won't do us any good. Let's get off of that then. Okay. Since we don't have those numbers, which kind of sucks because there's a lot of games we wanted to pay attention to.
Oh, definitely.
We'll probably have them for tomorrow. if you wanna do
Why
one
don't
more
you
show.
go ahead and tell us what you wanted to get across for the viewership numbers? Why they matter this week?
Oh, they matter every week because viewership drives realignment. And that's the one thing we're learning more and more is like
Right.
it's not just the presidents, it's not just the fit and stuff, but how much money you bring to a conference and how creative you are to a conference is almost everything. Really, how valuable are you to the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12? And so looking at that makes so much of a difference to understand, like, and seeing the writing on the wall, reading like the tea leaves of really what's going on, who is moving up and down, the trends and everything, because that's going to be the future. That's going to be the teams that are competing in the future, getting into another conference in the future, maybe a higher level conference. And so that's why we pay attention to the football viewership numbers. We're also starting to look at basketball viewership numbers too and do a little bit of analysis. At least on my end, I'm doing a little analysis to look at football versus basketball and how those two things stack up based on all the information that's available. Basketball viewership's hard to come by. ESPN, we said this a couple shows ago, but ESPN's average basketball game on big ESPN, meaning not ESPN2, not ESPNU, is around 955,000 viewers. That's just the average. Some are lower, some are higher. In the football world, on ESPN, normal ESPN, football rankings are, in the 2.2 to 2.3 million average and everything. So a football game, we all know this, but it's just data, like in absorbing this data, looking at trends and trying to understand it to see what drives value and what we can expect for the future and who's a valuable program and how our programs are doing and trends. So that's really what we're looking at. We're always going to look at that because we didn't realize before, I think a lot of us didn't realize before the last 2 years that this was such a big driver and everything that we like to talk about in our sport, and what conference we're going to be in. That's what we discuss.
So is it true that the average viewership numbers for the men's football is about 1.5 million? Is that the average?
The average across all men's football, would that be?
I'm talking A4. I'm not talking G5.
We need to dig into that. I can't
Okay.
verify that number. That seems kind of
Okay.
in line though with what you'd get on like Big Fox and ABC, ESPN2.
Right.
If you bundled all that together and took an average, probably spit out to around 1.5. That seems kind of in line. Just
Okay.
and then for men's basketball, what do you think, Immaculate?
It really goes down. Are you talking about, sometimes there's like FS2, are we talking Big Ten Network and their reportings?
We have to cover every game that is an A4 game. We're not going to count the G4 A4 or G5 A4 numbers. We're trying to average. Now, we've never done this before, so I'm glad we're talking about it.
Sure.
But the purpose of coming up with the average between basketball and football is to then you can assign value to those, right?
Sure.
And that's what Ute is talking about. Because even though 900,000 seems like a lot for a basketball game, the commercial breaks are a lot shorter. You don't have this really long halftime, and football has 4 quarters. Basketball has 2 halves. So you can't. It's not a 1-to-1 relationship.
No.
It's about a quarter is what we've worked out in general. Is basketball's rating is about 1/4 of what you'd get for a football game.
Might need to do that per conference then, because
definitely
probably going to vary quite a bit.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that if based on what I've seen so far, I think your average basketball game on all the channels is going to be less than 900,000. I think it's probably if I had a ballpark it, it'd be in the 7 to 750,000 range. And I think again the football's probably in line with that 1.5 number across all channels that are really logged. And like in the only place you can get this viewership data really is going through, Sports Watch and Sports Media Watch and other sites that actually report it and everything, or else like, you'd have to pay for it. Like if you're a media company and stuff, you'd probably get a little bit more detailed information. But the only public information we can look at is what's being, reported on ESPN, ESPN2, ABC, Fox, Big Fox, and the big boy channels. The Pac-12 network isn't on that. We don't have that data and stuff. So we are making some estimates and everything, but it still gets us in line to see the value drivers.
If you wanted the raw data, I think you'd have to subscribe to Nielsen like all the big boys do.
You know who does that? Will do it for me is Bob.
Bob is the man for this.
Bob said he would help me with that. And because I'm not the data guy, you guys are the data people. I would just put you in contact with him and you guys could talk about what those numbers look like. But we've talked about in the past how he'll go and he'll look stuff up if there's something specific we wanted to know, and then we can turn around and report on it. So I think we can do that offline. We can certainly talk on Twitter and see if we can get some of those Nielsen numbers from him, because he's subscribed to all of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you could get that,
Sportico, Nielsen,
you're
Yeah.
on the same page as everybody else.
right. Now there is this other question, and this is an interesting one from R Webb, who happens to be a paying member. Thank you so much, R Webb. He says, Balmer, there is a P5 in basketball. In other words, there's different ratings for basketball leagues in
true.
college basketball, and the Big East is an equal in basketball, not football, an equal to a
It
Big
is.
12 or a Big 10 or an ACC.
We saw that with that Fox tournament idea in Vegas. They brought up the Big East, Big 10, and Big 12.
Right.
Well, yeah, check it out, guys. So, like in 2022, I mean, I agree with our Webb's point, especially competitively and stuff. Viewership wise, to be determined on really where the Big East falls. The ACC is the big boy in basketball viewership. I know that like Big 12, we like to taunt how successful basketball's been, but the ACC drives big basketball ratings compared to all the other conferences. The
They
Big
have the
10
better
second.
brands for sure. They have the
Yeah,
better
so
brands.
ACC number 1, Big 10, and then the Big 12 for basketball. From the data that I've seen so far, we'll get you more data in the future and everything, but the Big East isn't in the top 3 and everything. So it's all about the viewership you're driving too. So it's not
Well,
just
and
about the
maybe that's something we should take note of, and we should see if we can come up with an A5 for basketball, and maybe put those leagues into like, does the Colonial League match the Ivy League? Basketball is a weird sport because you have some like Marquette, Big East. Their brand is pretty good and they're good at basketball.
right.
But they don't rate with North Carolina and Duke.
No.
So
No.
I mean, these are all things we just need to. That with basketball season, we'll have time to work through those things. We don't have to do it right now. This comment from Big Lubbock says the Big East gets $4 million per school with no football, so we're just on basketball. While the Mountain West gets $5 million for football. That tells
For
you
football and basketball, right?
yeah,
That's the thing about basketball. There's so many games that
yeah,
they make less per game, but they do more games. It's
absolutely.
the Major League Baseball effect. I mean, you look at it and how dead their stands are, but when you play 160 some games a year, you still make a killing.
Cleveland Rocks is also one of our paying members.
Yeah.
Wants to clear something up. He says that is somewhat misleading, as the regular season basketball games total 30, while football is only 12.
Yeah.
And we're talking about that comparative. We were just doing this comparative with the Big Lubbock. So you're getting more mass for less money in basketball for sure. The
And
numbers
that's what
will
your
spread
mark's
more
looking at.
thinly. It is, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. This is a really. Let's just open this up for discussion, okay? So
Yeah,
this,
sure.
I think that what we need to change. We're talking about a viewership, but let's go a level deeper and talk about really why viewership's valuable. Viewership is valuable because ESPN, if they buy the rights through a grant of rights of like the Big 12, they put that on TV and they make money based on the commercials, right? The commercials that they can sell off. That's really why viewership is valuable to ESPN, because they can sell off that content and advertisers want to buy rights to commercials. Simple. That's like the highest level, okay?
Yep.
And so for basketball, like Immaculate said, basketball, there's less commercials because the game's shorter and there's less breaks. And plus, from a business standpoint too, ESPN, not the commercials, but ESPN actually has to fill more content over a longer time period. So a football game goes for 3.5 hours, okay? So that's 3.5 hours of content that they paid for one game, that piece of content. For basketball, it's a 2-hour game. So they pay for a basketball game, but then there's not content for an hour and a half that you would have bridged through football. Does that make sense? So like football, the games are longer than the basketball games. So you basically have to buy 2 basketball games for every football game.
Right.
So there's a lot of things to consider here too, but just thinking about this, like, and trying to equalize data and everything, there's a lot of factors in play. That's that's the whole point of that stuff. But for basketball games, there's just not as many opportunities for commercials for your ESPN and stuff. So viewership, it matters and stuff, but also really like your opportunities for making commercials and like.
Football is a bit of a gamble too, because what people don't talk about too much is when these games, when they get sold to advertisers, they have a certain number. Like, this is what we're projecting it's going to get for viewership. This is what you're paying on. If it doesn't reach that, they actually have to recredit those companies back money. And in basketball, your margins on these viewerships is smaller, so there's less risk, I think. Whereas in football, there's a lot of risk. Like, what are you going to sell this to it? Now, if those numbers go way above what you sold at, well, guess what? Those advertisers just got free advertisement. So the volatility in football viewership, I think that's probably the biggest headache for these guys, because where do you market these games at? And if you market it too high, you're having to hand money back out the door.
Casting for Chrome has a very important point, and that is men basketball only draws big numbers in March.
Bingo.
I think that's right.
Numbers in March too, casting for Chrome, and those are the numbers that the NCAA reaps the returns, right? And not those are going back to the conferences and credits. Like, you're not selling off your NCAA tournament games like you would for your regular season games. But like I don't know if this is what I've read. But like your average NCAA basketball game is said to drive about 10 million in viewership per game. I'm not kidding you guys. I'm serious.
You're talking the round of 64?
Talking about all of them combined, your average. I mean, it seems like way out of line to me and stuff.
Right.
But that's what I've read through some credible sources and stuff. In the chat, do some digging into that, see if you can corroborate that number. But that's what I've seen.
That
is
seems
like approximately. It seems
very
way high, doesn't it?
It seems way high.
Wait, 10 million
Per game.
per game? Wow.
Average.
That seems
How many games
For
are
the
in
NCAA
the,
tournament.
How many games are in the tournament total?
I think 6 would be like
There's
65, 66 then?
No,
there's that
because
many
you got your
teams?
multiple rounds.
I think it
it's
boils out something like
tough
that.
to figure out now when you got those early rounds.
First round is 32.
But you even
First
now
two,
you
yeah.
have the first round of what is it, 8? Like,
you
just
have
because now they have the
64.
games to get into the 64, and those
I
count.
think there's only 2 games though that do that, aren't there?
It's only 4 teams. I thought it might have been up to 8.
I thought it was
but
4 teams. Like isn't it 68?
Yeah,
right
so
now?
Eugene's saying
Yeah.
67 games.
There's 67
68
games,
teams, so 67 games. Yeah, it's basically
67,
teams.
67 games, and if you could average 10 million per, that's
Right,
a
like
lot.
it seems kind of crazy and stuff. Like
Right.
just telling you what I read.
Yeah, that
I'll
seems
do a little bit
nuts.
more digging to corroborate that number, because I would have thought that it would be around like 1.5 million, 2 million. per game.
Kenneth Evans, BYU looked good beating ASU over the weekend. BYU plays Utah this week. I don't know if Ute is going to go to that game or not, but that should be a good one. Utah doesn't look bad this year. So as far as the Big 12 goes, I know there's been a little bit of sticker shot for these teams that are coming in, being at a place that isn't only talking about football. They're coming into the Big 12 and there is basketball talk, and it kind of, some fans don't know what to do with it. What has your experience been when you're into this conference now, Ute, and you've got people that want to talk basketball?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. You know what? Like, for me, it's like football, right? Like 90% football, 10% basketball, and everything. Like, basketball just doesn't excite me quite as much and stuff personally and stuff. I think a lot of Ute fans feel that way and stuff. The program's been down a lot. So I don't mean to be a buzzkill for Big 12 schools or anything, but like I just don't think there's ever going to be the passion in the Ute fan base for b-ball and everything, because really it's all about football. I'd much rather talk football year round than carve out basketball season. That's just me though.
I don't know that us four are going to be talking a lot of basketball, except as it relates to everything else. Now, I think basketball still has a value when you're talking realignment, when you're talking media dollars, when you're talking about partners. Basketball still has value. Fox
For sure.
specifically wanted to be in the Big 12 for basketball. It wasn't for football. So there's a lot in there that we can talk about. But I agree with you guys. I think late February, early March is where most of that basketball talk will spin up. And we'll do a tournament. We'll do a pick 'em. Maybe we can with our fans, and that would be fun to do as well. All right, before we get off that, do you guys want to say anything else about basketball?
Well, personally, I think realignment is going to be going hot and heavy during basketball season. So we might talk some about basketball, but I kind of think our conversations might be torn in another direction, shall I say.
We're going to have a lot more airtime to do that, too.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be just on 2 nights a week. Casting for Chrome, who, just so everybody knows, he's a OSU. That would be Oregon State fan. They have a great baseball team, have for a long time. He says College World Series, the 16-game postseason averaged 1.65 million viewers across all platforms and up 48% from the 22 College
Wow.
Series. That's a lot for
Not
baseball.
bad.
That is
I mean,
really a lot for baseball, I think.
That's probably where you're watching to see who are the guys that are going to be coming up as the top draft picks in Major League Baseball. And while
right.
most people may not talk about that, baseball fans care about that stuff and follow that pretty closely.
Baseball fans, if you're still a baseball fan, after all the things that put baseball down, you're passionate because
Yep.
it takes a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
to be a baseball fan.
And they're baseball first, many of them.
Oh, yeah. Well, Oregon State, I think, they want to be football, but right now baseball is the
I mean, but like baseball fans in general, like Major League
Right.
Baseball fans, many of them are actually baseball first.
I agree with you. Raider Vision.
I've got great news, guys. This
Oh.
excites
What's
me
that?
at least. Okay, so you know how like these college basketball ratings are freaking hard to find. Like I had to dig
Yes.
into like ESPN, like media, like old media posts and stuff per year to get the data I'm talking to you about and stuff. But I just found something that's going to be something that we need to track going forward. I want to put this in the chat right now. Okay. It looks like Sports Media Watch is now reporting basketball ratings as of this year.
Hey.
So here's week 1.
that's
I threw it in the
awesome.
chat here. See if you can pop that up, Bomber. I don't know if you can get to that.
I can't get it from that. You have to send it to
Yeah,
me
let me-
on Twitter.
Well, let's take a look like a week 1 here of
happy to
basketball
look
ratings
at it.
here. This is new information. I haven't seen this from anywhere else, so let's take a look.
Well, can
Look-see.
I just go to here? Maybe I can find it.
I
College
pinged it to you.
basketball men's.
He just sent it to you. So
Yeah, on
Okay.
X.
I think I found it. No. All right. Let me look at your link then. This will be fun. This is new.
This will be real good because now we can actually get good data and everything.
Whoa!
It'll
It's a
be more
different.
equal.
It's a different color and everything. How about that?
Yeah, pull
All
that
right,
up
here we
and
go.
that'll give you some perspective on game
I
1.
will do that.
in
Here we
first
go.
week of B-ball.
So this will be interesting for everybody that's watching this. We're gonna do. I'm pinging out.
And
Okay, I'm back.
I just found this. I haven't consumed this. Let's just explore it together, y'all. So look, the biggest game,
Okay.
Arizona Duke, looks like week 1 got a 1.19 million viewers on, and that looks like it was on ESPN.
not bad.
And then this is including some women's games. So look at that, women's UConn NC State got 625K in B-ball ratings, and then you got that Baylor game, men's Auburn, a little over 500,000. So you can see here that like obviously basketball games aren't nearly as highly rated, as football games, and we've talked about a lot of factors on why that is and everything here. But just consume some of that.
Yeah, fun
Fascinating.
stuff. Iowa women actually get better rating than Iowa men.
Man, look at that. You see, look, hey, remember that? Hey, our web. So you talked about the Big East comment, right? The Big
Right.
East is a Power 5. Look at some of the
Right.
ratings for the Big East teams, though. Like they're not that high.
Well,
like
here,
St. John's.
I think you can change it, can't you?
I think this is brand new. I haven't seen this before.
Let's see. It's
So
college. We can go to ACC. Which conference do you want to see?
I want to see Big East.
They don't even list Big East as an option.
No, you did. You went to the one below it. It was there. It's there.
Where?
It's
I don't
between
see
big.
it here.
It's right. You're on it.
Yep, right there.
Oh, there it is. It's transparent. I couldn't see it. Okay. It's thinking. Let's see what it does.
It's just giving you schedules.
That's
Oh,
just
that's just the
just
schedule.
yeah, that's just the schedule. That's not. Well, anyway, now we have
Anyway.
access to it, you. So
Yeah, we'll be looking at basketball ratings too, y'all.
yeah, that's interesting, I think. All right. Let's quickly review. We've talked about Michigan. Let's circle back on Michigan and how cheaters prosper before we wrap up today's show. You're very passionate about it. So is Moen. Does one of you guys want to do a 90-second wrap up on why Michigan sucks?
Yeah,
I
Moan,
don't
go ahead.
know. I don't
I
know
wanna
what you
hear it.
guys want to say.
I can't really say Michigan sucks. They beat my team this week. It'll just look like sour grapes coming from my mouth. If you want me to rant, I can rant about the coaches leaving without talking to their program first.
Please do that. That would be great.
Okay.
I would love that.
Simple thing. You go in, you sit in a parent's living room, you tell them you're going to take care of these kids for the next 3 to 4 years of their life. You don't have the ability to show them how to be a man and step up and say, hey, guys, I love y'all, but I've got a great opportunity at Texas A&M, and I got to take it. I want to thank every one of you for being a part of this team and helping me to get where I got to. I couldn't have done it without you. God bless you. I love you. I see you. You do that in person. You don't do that over Zoom, Mike Elko. Jonathan Smith, you don't lie to him when you know you've been negotiating this deal for 5 weeks with Michigan State. You say, hey, I'm going to be upfront and honest with you. I am talking to people. I have to do what's best for me and my family. And unfortunately, we're probably going to be left out of the Power Four for the next 2 years. So I've got to go to a Power Four program to take my game to the next level. And I love you kids, and I appreciate everything you've done for this university. I love it as an alma mater. It's my alma mater. I love it as an alumni, but I got to go. Jonathan Smith, Mike Elko, neither one of you could do that. In my eyes, makes you less of a man. Doesn't even make you a man.
Let me ask you, Moen, let me ask you a direct question. How would you have preferred they do it?
I just gave it to you. You get them all in a room. You tell them the
what
truth.
time? What time? When would you make that
Mike
announcement?
Smith should have started telling them as soon as he was negotiating with Michigan State. He should have been honest and said, yeah, I'm talking to people. Not, yeah, I'm staying at Oregon State.
Why not do it all after? Why not push off Michigan State till after?
Because of the way the transfer portal works and early signing day works now, you can't do that. You can't just wait till after. The schools won't wait that long. They want these coaches ready to go for early signing. So they can't wait till the end of the season.
So you would rather have him play the last 3 weeks of the season as sort of a road show, meaning I'm out of here, but I'm going to coach you guys.
Well, I'm not saying I'm out of here, but he wasn't out of there. The deal wasn't done with Michigan State.
But
know. He should have been honest and said, "Hey, I'm talking to them," instead of lying to the kids and saying, "Oh no, I'm for sure staying at Oregon State."
Can anybody give me an example of that actually ever happening?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure
I
it probably
think of
exists,
one.
but no, I'm not. I don't have
Yeah,
anything off the top of my hand.
Yeah, I can't
But
think
and
of
then
one.
the
I
Mike
agree with him,
Elko
though.
situation, you go, he's in Texas, and instead of even flying back to be with his guys and tell them
Right.
in person, he
Right.
does it over a Zoom call.
No, that's chicken.
Yeah.
Absolutely chicken.
Yeah, and after
it's-
and when you've touched on this, but like, a program like Oregon State, like it's family. Like you preach family. We're family. Like,
Yeah, I hate
it's
that, by
basically
the
you're
way.
like Jonathan Smith was kind of like a father figure, like all these players and stuff. They loved him and loved Oregon State and everything else. So just having the manliness of going in person and just telling them what's going on and why you're doing that would mean everything for your credibility and how the players would see you. And plus, like, seriously, if in this new transfer portal world and stuff, maybe like some players would want to come along with you. Seriously, like I mean, if you handle it in a certain way and everything, if you want to bring some players to the new team and stuff, they might be open to being coached by you in the future still, rather than feel like slapped in the face about it stuff. So I don't get any benefit of handling things that way. It's chicken.
I think the only way that happens, a coach leaves, is if they're retiring. I cannot think of one situation where the school would be okay with the guy going out and negotiating his exit, essentially. And meanwhile, he's telling kids in the huddle, hey, I might be somewhere else next week. They
Well,
want him out the door as soon as possible, because everything he does after that time he declares is corruption. It's just like leaving a job. The 2 weeks notice thing is so old, it doesn't make any sense anymore, because the minute somebody gives their 2 weeks notice, you want them out the door that minute, because they can go in and they can steal data, they can recruit employees off of your team. There's no situation where I can think of anymore where 2 weeks notice or even 2 days notice makes any sense.
But again, it's about honesty.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think in a perfect world that would be great. I just cannot think of a situation where that would actually happen.
A lot of times, like with your example with 2 weeks, yeah, a lot of times it doesn't actually happen, but it's about offering it to the company so that way, they're not just immediately without the services. And if they decide, it's not worth the security risk, whatever, well, then that's on them. But that's basically just giving them the offer. And so like your future employer would appreciate seeing it. But in terms of these coaches, I don't think that they necessarily need to tell their team everything they're doing, but don't lie about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are out there, don't be all getting all, find another way to get your team up rather than going, loyalty and whatever you're saying. Keep in mind that eventually you're going to have to say that you're leaving. If you're starting to look, you're going to find something. So what you're telling your team, you better be able to stand up for what you said then later on when the news comes out that you're looking around. But do I think that, Jonathan Smith, if he's talking to Michigan State during the year, needs to tell his team, oh, I'm talking to these guys? I actually think that's detrimental to the team. Like the part that I'm pissed about in the whole thing is that he actually came out before the game and told them. He stole that game from his team.
That's right.
And he shouldn't have come out before the game to tell them. If you're going to wait that freaking long, wait till after the game, and say, hey, guys, we've had a great season. I got to let you know what's going on for the next year. But you didn't steal that game from them. When you come out before the game and tell them, man, that we see what happens. Oregon State, they didn't have anything in it. And to me, that's what I'm most pissed about, is when you steal a game from one of your players. Because, as I played in high school, and I wish I would have been able to go further with that. But you only have so many games. And when you literally have the biggest game of the year for you stolen from you by your coach like that, that's the part that pisses me off. And I don't see any excuse for that at all. Coming out to your team before the game, like, did he want them to lose bad? I just don't get it.
But going off of Moen's point, that team wants him in as soon as possible, and they don't care what happens to his old team.
No, I know that.
Michigan State has a vested interest to get their coach in there as quickly as possible. They forced this down. You think the coach wanted to announce right before the game? I think Michigan State was pushing.
No, I would tell Michigan State to F off then.
For $6 million, you would?
Yeah, I'd say if you really need to. Let me finish my point.
Yeah, go
ahead. Let me finish. If you're going to come at me and tell me I have to tell my guys to do something that detrimental to them, I'm not coming to your fucking school. Because what are you going to tell me to do to my guys there? Like, there's no, because what's the point? Why would Michigan State need you to say that before the game? What's a couple extra hours? I understand the point that you're making, that if they tell you you have to do something, you kind of got to go with it. But if they're going to tell you to do something like that has no gain and it only damages your current team, I'd say that's a situation I don't want to go into. And yeah, that might cost them $6 million for a year. But he could get another job. Jonathan Smith is a very good coach. So I think that he was afraid that it was getting leaked out. We saw the Oregon game putting up the Michigan State game on their board. And I just think that he went, a little chicken shit, and decided to get that out before someone else did.
Are you serious that Oregon did that?
Yeah. The Michigan State game was on their board at their game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was before the game they were putting it out. So,
So-
it leaked out, word got out, and he didn't want news to get to his team, before he did. But, in that case, I would say, guys, don't even be looking at that. Don't worry about that. We're focusing on this, and just keep them focused on the game. Get them through that game. That's your job. And then afterwards, you deal with that. And I think he went a little chicken shit. That's my opinion.
and I want to be very clear. I think Immaculate. I think Moen. What you guys are saying, I 100% agree with. As a human being, that is the best position. That's the epitome of what your behavior should be. But in today's reality, outside of that perfect situation, Kenneth Evans says they're paying him $7.4 million. You're not going to walk away. That's double his salary. And
What I'm saying is, I don't think Michigan State came and told him.
we
to
don't
tell
know
the team.
that though, right?
I'm
We
saying,
don't know.
well, we do have evidence. We have evidence that somehow this was leaking out, and somehow the folks at Oregon knew enough that they put the Michigan State game up on their board. They're saying they're doing that to get into the team's skin.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know. I
So-
wasn't there.
Right. I
I
understand.
can't say.
I'm
so I
just
can't
saying
say one or
it
the
is something.
other.
I'm not mad at you. I'm just saying,
No, I know you're not.
to me,
That's
him,
okay.
as Moen was saying, I have much less respect for him as a man for doing that,
I
because
agree with you.
it's his job to keep them focused on that game and not to be the cause for them taking off from that game, because that's their life, that's their experience, it's their moment. You're as a coach, you're the one who's trying to get them prepared for their moment, not your moment. And even if the other team found out that you're having those talks, it's still your job to keep them focused and going, hey guys, I just got to tell you this because it's starting to come out. I just think he's chicken shit. I don't know if anyone could get me to think otherwise in that case.
I don't think anybody's trying to convince you.
No,
that
I
he's
know.
not
I'm just
chicken.
saying. I don't think he was told by Michigan State. I think he saw
I don't know.
people were finding out, and he just blurted it out to them.
Yeah,
I love
maybe.
that it was the Moen rant segment and it became the Immaculate drop the F-bomb
Well,
rant segment.
Yeah, I try not to very often, but when it comes to stuff
Woo,
like this,
well done.
I think it's really important that us four represent that we know how things should be running, right? We know
Right.
how people should be taught, should be treated. We definitely try to treat everybody that's on our show with equal time, and their opinions matter. But all four of us, if we were in the same situation, I think we would try to our very end degree to treat the current employer as good as you were going to treat the future employer. The only problem is we're talking about teams and this information leaking out, and for whatever reason he felt like he needed to do it, and now his name has been tarnished a little bit. But as we were just talking about Michigan being punished, everybody's attention spans are this long. So in 4 years, is anybody going to remember how he left Oregon State?
No.
The only
people
that
at
are
Oregon
gonna-
State will.
yeah,
they're the only
yeah.
ones. The only ones that'll feel wronged are at
I mean,
Oregon State. The rest
I will
of the
say
world
this.
will forget.
I will say this as an Iowa guy: if say in 2 years, say he does great at Michigan State, and in 2 years Ferentz is about to retire, and for some reason Smith's name comes up as the Iowa position, I won't forget. I'll be like, no, remember what he did. Are you sure? I think that it will come up, but in specific circumstances. Like everyone, no. It'll just be if his name comes up for another job after that.
Yeah, we'll have to get into this later because I can't think of one guy who went from one school to another that didn't leave on a bad note. I can't think of one. Cleveland Rock says loyalty has become obsolete in college sports. Unfortunately, that's a fact. And Casting for Chrome says he lied to those kids. That's also a fact. But I would say this is what trumps both of those: $7.42 million per year for 6 years, guaranteed. So it
Man,
doesn't
it's-
matter.
That's tough.
Right.
Though. When you recruit these
doesn't
kids, you
matter.
love these kids, you're with them every day. Like you've talked to their parents, you went into their households and everything, and just be a man about it. Just be a
How-
dang man about it, man.
How
Who cares about the money? Like he's a multimillionaire anyway. Like it's not just about the money; it's about human beings.
Let's do the over under on how many kids transfer from Oregon State to Michigan State.
Not many.
At this point,
I-
I'm taking the under.
I think
whatever it is.
you could have, if we set the number at 6, I think it's going to be more than that.
I think you'll just have a bunch of Oregon State kids transfer, but not to his team. He's already got guys who are leaving Michigan State. The quarterback at Michigan State that is a native of Corvallis.
Right.
And when talking about his time and dealing with Smith and how badly it went, they're leaving because they don't want to be with him. He's got an offensive lineman leaving because he's having a negative effect right now. I think he'll be able to get other guys in. And look, I mean, I know most people think of Michigan State as a down team or as not a good team. Moen can attest to this. Michigan State in the Big Ten historically is a mid to upper tier team. I mean, they have gone to CFP. They are desperate to this, and they have people with money. I mean, look at Ishbia at Phoenix, Michigan State guy. You know he's going to be dumping money into that program. So they're going to be throwing a lot of money at this. But God, Smith was a quarterback for Oregon State. That's his school, and that's his locker room, and he did that. It's just really hard to respect. So, he'll probably do well there, and he'll probably get in a bunch of kids to come in there. I don't think it's going to be kids coming from Oregon State, though, because just imagine you're an ex-quarterback from there, all the big talk about how much Oregon State means, how many of his pep talks and all that had to be about the love of the school and all that. All those kids are going to look through that right now and say, there's no way I'm going to go listen to that guy over there. I mean, he was just blowing smoke here. So, yeah, I don't think he gets a lot from OSU.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Immaculate. I 100% agree.
Glenn Lumen says, if you want loyalty, buy a puppy.
That's a funny one.
And then Casting for
funny.
Jerome, again, an Oregon State guy, says it's not about loyalty, it's about what's right and wrong. And I think we all agree with you, Jet. We all agree with you. It is a right and wrong thing, and we would like to think we would make the right choice, but we're talking life-changing amounts of money.
Like, we're
I'm not
talking a
saying it
couple hours,
justifies it.
though. Isn't it a couple hours? Like, what we're talking about
What
here
we don't
is
know
going
is
and just telling
was
your
the
team that you're leaving and face-to-face, right?
But
That's all we're saying.
the four of us don't know what happened in the back end.
Right. I mean, I don't know if there's any liability issues there or something.
We don't know.
Understand,
We don't
right?
know
That's-
why it had to happen in the way it did. And
In
so
Nate's
us talking
defense,
about it doesn't make a lot of
you could be right. Like, if this was starting to come out and get leaked out, Michigan State might have said, you have to bring this up because we don't want this to come out through other parties. But I still don't understand how telling the team, I mean, he told the team before it came out public. So
Yeah, they
it's
had
just-
quit before the game. Yeah.
it's just really hard to come up with a scenario that kind of goes, okay, I get why he did that. I think, if he looked out there and someone said, oh my God, they're playing Michigan State up on the board, Oregon knows, I think he's just freaked out a little bit and, just came through to the team. And it was one of those moments of maybe fear where he's made a bad decision.
I'm not defending what he did.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I don't think Michigan State told him to do that.
Everything has people make decisions based on information. He obviously felt like he was threatened in some way and had to come out when he did. It was a horrible way to do it, though. And yeah, we'll cue Ted DiBiase as it goes with Moen. I love that. All right, we have gone overtime, everybody. I appreciate you sticking with us. It's been a fascinating discussion. We're going to do more of this. We have a show tomorrow night. I think we're probably going to go at, let's say, are you guys okay with 8 Eastern, Immaculate and Moen?
Yeah, as usual.
All
Good
right,
with me.
8 Eastern tomorrow. We'll have our follow-up show to this. I think Ute's going to take that show off, so we are going to appreciate him being here tonight. Let's do a final sign-off, everybody. First, I'll say, please follow us on Twitter and definitely subscribe to this channel. Consider being a paid member. You can do that on the main Big 12 Mafia page. Hit the join button. You can become a paying member. We have a good community here, and we'd like to invite you in. Make sure you subscribe to us and then turn on your notifications. What do you want to say on the way out?
Always remember, Michigan's a cheater.
I love it. I love it. Okay, Moen.
Like, comment, subscribe, join the family, become a member.
I love it very much. And also watch the Moen Show on YouTube. Make sure you plug that, Moen.
Yeah, but if people don't watch it, don't watch it.
Okay, whatever.
I'm half stoned most of the time I'm doing it anyway. So.
Hey, wait, I didn't
I've
think
wondered
that was,
a couple times when I watch.
That's not legal yet, is it?
I've got a card.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I've got a card.
Immaculate. What do you want to say?
Iowa's going to do what Ohio State weren't man enough to do. We're going to take down Michigan. How about that?
Hey, I'm all
That's
for
a
it.
funny line.
Yeah, it pretty much is. I mean, I don't know. Maybe our defense will win it with some defensive touchdowns, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be the final game for Brian Ferentz.
I would love to see Iowa just punch him in the mouth and just beat him down.
Do you know the celebration on this channel if Iowa beats Michigan? We're gonna have a party.
That would be fantastic. I could not wait.
I
That
mean-
is an awesome idea.
I'm making fun of Alabama for possibly knocking the SEC out, but Iowa could potentially knock the Big Ten out.
I'd be fine with it.
I'm fine with it too.
Oh, I'm sure you guys are. I'm kind of, half and half. I mean, it's not like I don't want Iowa to win, but yeah, we'll hear about it. I mean,
This
if the
last
Big Ten
comment
doesn't go.
from Cleveland Rocks, again, one of our paying members, he says, if Michigan gets punished by the NCAA next year, it'll be a great time to start coaching at Michigan State.
Not wrong,
Oh yeah.
especially when those kids start to transfer out of there.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this is so funny. I love talking about other people's misery sometimes. It just makes me feel so good.
Shot and fro again.
All right, everybody, we love you being here. Thank you so much. And yeah, follow us on Twitter and watch for us tomorrow night at 8 Eastern. Everybody stay out of trouble. Peace out.